Moving right along, I think we're at accessory buildings. Any comments here from council? Right, I don't see any. So we'll move on to the storage and residential zones. Oh, sorry, yard exceptions and storage and residential zones.
Why does it say request control at the top there? Is that because Kevin has control of the screen right now?
That's just that they're recording, as far as I understand.
Oh, okay.
Council.
'Cause it just looked like Kevin was having some issues there, like he wasn't hearing us. So I request.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, my headset just went dead on me. So I was flapping my lips and
Okay.
what's happening?
So we've taken out a number of them here, and it's fairly simplified.
Sorry, I missed that last bit of the conversation, sorry.
I said we're on to the page 21, yard exceptions and storage and residential zones.
Okay, there we go.
Took out a number there, and it's just 5.13.1 now.
That is correct.
We're okay. I think we had quite a lot of discussion on that one. Hopefully everybody's here for that. Secondary suites and caretaker suites.
I do have a question back for their storage and residential zones. Because we struck the requirement that commercial vehicles, trucks, buses, equipment needs to be stored in backyards. How do we manage through this if it becomes a big deal, that becomes out of control?
This is like anything else in your zoning bylaw. You know, zoning bylaw really is should be contemplated as a living document. So if we get you finally adopt this bylaw and we get into it, and you begin administering it, you find all of a sudden everybody's parking their large welding trucks in their yard, and it becomes an unsightly issue, and you start getting a lot of complaints about it. Then you can go back and revisit your bylaw and go, okay, do we fundamentally need to address this issue?
Okay.
Right. And so you know, just having a tracking system of what the primary complaints are and what bylaw you use to administer those primary complaints over time, right? If it's a zoning bylaw thing, then you look at your zoning bylaw again and you massage that zoning bylaw to reflect the needs of the community to regulate a particular issue.
All right, and we can manage it through unsightly, right? If it gets to be too. Okay. I think that's why we got rid of a lot of the other stuff. Any other questions on that section? Okay, on to the next one, secondary and caretaker suites. Don't see any comments. It actually goes for the next 3 pages. Councilor Down?
Yeah, I do. 5.15.1, an off-street parking area shall have the following dimensions. And it lists the widths and depths of stalls and aisleways. Has this measurements been tested? In Port McNeill, we have a lot of 3/4 ton pickup trucks. We don't have Teslas. So what does this look like in terms of, because I'm presuming this would be new construction, new builds and such. What does that do?
To give you an example, in Campbell River, to give an example, because Campbell River is a truck town also, and we redid theirs. Campbell River, you'll have a stall width of 2.8 meters and 6 meters long with a 7 meter wide aisle width. And so that's for your 90-degree parking. So these are very consistent with 30 communities with larger vehicles.
Okay.
And so are these minimums that people have to have? Like for example, I affectionately refer to it as the runway. We've got a massive driveway. So is there a minimum? Is this a minimum, or if you can help explain that to me? Great.
So yes, these are minimums. Yeah.
Okay, and then on 5.15.3, an off-street parking area shall have each parking space and all internal access and egress driveways surfaced with a dust-free material. So we're not talking about driveways, we're talking about a pathway that is carved out of a yard to access a backyard, perhaps. Is that what we're talking about?
Counselor, can you tell me which section you're in again, please?
5.15.3. Parking.
5.153. So, each parking space and internal access and egress driveway surface dust-free material. Oh, I see. Yeah. So basically, what it's saying is, yeah, like if you have a driveway, each parking space and your internal access and egress in the driveways or internal access and egress in the driveway surface, that's where basically if you're thinking of a single family home, that's where your driveway crosses the town-owned boulevard onto the road, right? So there's a space between the property line and the town-owned boulevard. That is the responsibility of the property owner to construct and maintain that portion that most people think is their property, but it's actually owned by the town. And this is just providing that provision in place, basically saying you need to surface that properly for the access to your property.
I have a question on that because I know that there has been some homes that have gravel, which could be considered dust-free, and it's their complaint is that my gravel is running away when the water goes, and the town's complaint, like when it rains, and the town's complaint is that gravel is going into our storm sewer. Yep. And so I'm not sure if surface with the dust-free shouldn't say paved.
Mm-hmm. You could certainly do that. I would recommend if you're going to go that way, that it should be in your subdivision development servicing bylaw specifically. And this provides sort of that support to your subdivision and development servicing bylaw. But yeah, certainly you have to understand if you're going to require all parking in your community be paved, that you probably want to contemplate the use it's associated with. Because if it's all, that means industrial, that means all the properties too, right? So.
But that, I'm thinking like just the egress part, right? So,
yeah.
And this is in new builds this year, right?
Yeah. Well, right. This actually pertains to all properties in the community, right? It's nothing about new build here. If you can utilize this to actually begin, if you think the gravel driveways are not a dust-free driveway and things like that, you can utilize this provision to actually begin to bylaw enforce. This is an existing provision, by the way. This isn't a new provision.
I think currently it's kind of being managed as in new builds, but yeah. Okay. Any other questions on that section, Councillor Cole?
Yeah, somewhere else in the bylaw, we say dust-free material or something approved by the town. Mm-hmm. Do you recall that? Why we got two different things there? I guess we'll get to that later. For the commercial properties.
Yeah, I seem to recall reading something like that as well, Councillor Cole. We'll see where we find it when we go through. Okay, anything else on the page 23 and 24 to do in that section? No. Okay, and moving on to urban beekeeping. And oh no, sorry, back up.
Derek's point is 5.15.9.
Oh, thank you.
Item B.
There you go.
Parking lots in commercial or industrial zones shall be surfaced with asphalt, concrete, or equivalent material as approved by the town of Fort McNeil.
That makes me nervous because we never had that in before. It was just asphalt or concrete or equivalent material. I mean, to be frank, I got a problem with Comox Pacific across the road. I mean, it's like dust storms from there, and I'm not sure why we're not enforcing our bylaw already. But the whole town gets dusted out from them.
I guess as approved by the town, I know that there's certain stuff which just looks like a crushed rock, but once it's compacted, it's like a driveway, so.
If you have an issue with approved by the town of Port McNeil, you can remove it. The reality is it should be approved by the town anyway through either subdivision process, building permit process, or development permit process. There's an approval process where how someone actually finishes their lot, there is an approval process required at some phase, right? So you don't need to have that in there. It's an understood for overall development approvals of any kind.
I believe it's in the zoning bylaw, not zoning, sorry, the building bylaw. What is required for permanent occupancy. Okay,
I guess if I may, to me, we've got in this 5.15 section, we say it 3 different times and each time is worded differently. So 5.15.3, they're all saying the same thing, dust free, but they're all worded differently.
Right.
And then again on 5.15.8, it talks about driveways. That, and then
5.15.8 is the only new section in this provision.
I like the be surface with asphalt, concrete, or equivalent material.
I like that too.
Can we make that be throughout so it's consistent?
that's what I'm proposing, yeah.
Well, I think the point though is the as approved by the town of Port McNeil, and then we can reference these other bylaws. In the town of Mackenzie, there are driveways that have a tarp over top because of the ground freezing and such. So other materials beware. Frost uses.
Come back to us with a consistent recommendation for Kevin, or do you have one off the top of your head that you can suggest for us that?
Oh, yeah, no, this is very, very simple. It's just about if you, you know, that consistency of surface with asphalt, concrete, or equivalent material. That's a very simple tweak that we can do throughout just for consistency in 5.15.8, 5.1559, and also up here in 5.13. That's a very simple approach.
Can we include dust-free material? Because really, that's my issue, is the dust.
Or dust-free equivalent material. Surface with asphalt, concrete, or equivalent dust-free material. Really, because that's I think what the idea is, right? That it's. Can I have a motion then that we change it to be surface with asphalt, concrete, or equivalent dust-free material?
As approved by the town of Port McNeil.
Yeah.
Okay, as approved by the town of Port McNeil. Okay, seconded for that motion? Or sorry, you first, seconded? Yeah, any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay. Now to beekeeping. I don't, oh, go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Yes, our letter from our conservation officer recommended electric fences around beehives. So I'd like to make the motion that we include that.
I'll second that. Any discussion on that?
I think that's a best practice, but you're telling someone what to do and how to do it. I don't agree with that.
You agree with the bears getting shot? You know? Like,
Well-
it's about keeping our community safe. So if a neighbor has an attractant to bears, that's not fair to the other residents in the, and it's, I'm gonna make the same argument for chickens.
Say the same for our garbage cans.
I was gonna say, let's not have garbage at all then.
But we do say when the garbage has to go out in the morning and it can't be overnight.
That's right. And to me, it's same with chickens. If it's just one more higher bar, then you're gonna get more responsible people taking part in chickens and beekeeping.
Let's go back to when Brad came and spoke to us, and we had 2 senior citizens in here who had fruit trees, who were told to buy electric fencing or like leave it. And they're going, well, I can't afford the electric fencing, so now I have to give up my 50-year plum tree.
Yeah, this is a new thing we're talking about here. It's not an established, something we're taking away from somebody. We're adding this. And frankly, you know, a progressive town or something, we would have those to be rented out or loaned out or.
I don't know, bears are migratory. If they find it one time, they'll find it again. And if they found something, if you have a beehive on Brockington and they have 3 houses on Brockington for the last 10 years that they've gotten garbage from, well then yeah, they'll probably find the beehive. But if they've never found garbage on Brockington, they may not find the beehive.
Well, I'm not an expert on animals. I just know the person who is an expert said we should have electric fences. So that's.
Okay, I'll call the question. Do you want to make a comment before I call the question, Councillor Downey?
I was gonna say that often these hives are located out in the wild without electric fencing around them, so.
And beekeepers actually have you don't, my understanding is beekeepers, you don't just go and pick up bees and start, like you can go and pick up chickens and start. There's a level of professionalism that comes with being a beekeeper.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? So that was 50-50. The motion is defeated. So it remains as it is right now. Okay. Zones. No, so here, I guess we'll go to page, the rural residential A1 zone. Go ahead, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, I brought it up last time. We've got zones listed here that aren't even on the map. And I guess the argument was made, oh, well, in case you want to add them later. So, well, can the argument be in case we could just change the bylaw later if we want to add them? So I don't understand why we have definitions of things that aren't in proposed uses, and I don't understand why, you know, I'll quote the zones here, check my notes, but in general, yeah, we've got commercial service 2. I think we don't have a CS2 anywhere. So why would we have that?
Okay, just to Kevin.
Yep, and that's the exact conversation we had, Councillor Cole. It's not a necessity. It's an historic zone that the community has had. If council wishes to remove the zone, we can easily do so.
I'd like to make a motion to remove that zone.
Okay,
Any
seconder.
zones,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. And
I believe it's CS2 without checking my.
Yes, it is
It
CS2.
is. Okay.
What page is it on?
26 of the, or 29, 26 of the package. 26.
Yeah, we might want to reference the actual zone here. The uses.
Of course.
Mhm.
Okay, further you're talking about, Councillor Cole?
Yeah, I was just suggesting we look at 9.4, the zone that I'm proposing being removed. Again, we don't, all this stuff is picking up from different areas. We have auto sales in other areas. Broadcasting station is that's the one outlier that I could see that isn't in any other zone.
Sorry, you're talking about 8.4, which is commercial service 2, and 9.4, the marine industrial commercial?
No, I'm suggesting we actually go to 9.4, page 44, and look at the permitted uses in that zone.
Well,
I'm saying get rid of it, but for your benefit, I'm suggesting we look.
Okay, if we can.
See if we want that zone, but what my point is everything but broadcasting station is picked up in the other zones.
Okay, so if I may, so that we're not going back and forth across, can we go in a methodical order and just go page by page like we've gone through the rest of
Sure.
and what to bring up at that time? But you did make a mention of 8.4, that we don't have that, so you made a motion to remove 8.4, correct?
Yes.
Okay, seconder for that motion? Sure, any discussion?
So just to clarify, we have a zone CS2 that no property in town is zoned as
Or scheduled to be zoned as.
or scheduled to be zoned as. And you're saying that the only thing that's in that zone that's not permitted somewhere else is a radio broadcast?
But that's in.
That's in there.
Oh, sorry.
If we want to flip to 8.4, commercial zones. It's not labeled the same. Commercial service 2, it's not labeled the same, it's 9.4 in here. It's on page 44.
Mhm.
When you're talking about service, commercial service 2, yeah, so in here on the page 26, it says commercial zone 8, but they're 9s. That's incorrect. What was it?
I heard Kevin was frozen.
So are you referring to page 44, 9.4 commercial to CS2 zone, Councilor Cole? Yeah,
Yeah.
so that those numbers are incorrect.
And Kevin, your feeling is kind of, if you don't have it, sure, get rid of it. You can just put it back in later if you need it. That.
Yep.
Your personal planning advice?
Yeah, and Councillor Cole's correct. This is one of those historic zones. It's a relic zone that the community has. If there's no fundamental use for the zone, it streamlines the bylaw by removing it. If someone comes forward and wants a particular use that isn't in that zone, either you create a new zone or you find a zone where it makes most sense in.
Is the garden center covered anywhere else in any zones where currently there is a garden center? Anyway, okay. All those in favor? Opposed, carried, okay. So that'll be removed. And those also will be corrected, the numbers will be corrected in that section? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, rural zone A1. Any changes? Okay, next one then, all holding B2 zone.
So,
Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
yeah, here's another one. We don't have any A2s proposed, so I'm gonna propose removing that. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but that's a relic of the old one.
Do we have any currently zoned as A2?
That is another one that's kind of hard to see because the color is similar to other ones, but the only A2 we had was like the Legion and the kind of the church, and we're now proposing changing that. So, and then previously A2 was the 3 lots on Cedar Street that were recently for sale, but again, we're proposing that be C2. Or no, I do see it there. Or we didn't actually get zoning maps with this package today, so
That That's existing.
Well, again, that was mine because we had already had them all printed out. That's why I didn't have them reprinted.
I know, but what Kevin just had flashed up there looked,
That was the existing,
Oh,
zoning
was,
map.
yeah.
I'm gonna hunt down the most up-to-date final map for our review right now. Oops. So, boom, there we go. So here's area 1, which obviously is a big area, A1. Let me pull up area, sorry, that's area 2-3, and I'll pull up here. Oh, that's the old, sorry, that's the old map. Oh, this will work. So let's take a look here. We look at this light small holding zone. The only last parcels that were small holding zone were, you're correct, Councillor Cole. Were these parcels here and these parcels here. And there was one small, and these parcels here under the existing zoning were all the A2 zone. And so what you're saying is because we're rezoning all of those, you're correct, there is no longer any A2 zone parcels within the community if we proceed with this zoning map update.
and yeah, so I'm gonna propose we remove A2. I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, seconder.
Second it. But I'd like to know Kevin's opinion as to whether that's wise or not.
It's similar to the other one. If there are no properties that are zoned A2, and you look at the proposed uses, they're not any uses that aren't permitted in other zones, to be honest, within the community. So I don't see any fundamental reason to keep the zone if there are no parcels zoned for that purpose. Streamlining your bylaw is always going to be a benefit where there's an opportunity to do so.
I would be in favor of this after the public process. If there's no pushback on that, then I would be in favor of removing it if the public process proves out that the change we're proposing is fine. So I would agree, I would vote in favor with that caveat, I guess. Pending, would you a friendly amendment pending public approval process or public hearing process? No?
No, I don't really think so. That we could, every single thing in this whole bylaw is public to, pending public approval. So by us having a less confusing document for the public is my advantage. That's what I'm asking. So if I'm in the public, I'm going to look, where's A2? And then you're going to be, what's going on, They can clearly look and see the old map where A2 was, and they can clearly look on the new map and see what the old A2 parcels have been changed to. So.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried it. Okay, residential zone, R1.
Can I just ask a policy question, Kevin? I understand this bylaw hasn't been gone through for a dinosaur's age, but is what Derek just spoke of, is that not just something you would catch in a yearly or every 5 years, or like, is that something that you would just, like, staff would go through and would say, hey, this is kind of cleanup, where you'd have an external contractor come in every now and then and say, hey, these are just some housekeeping things that need to get done? Like, does it need to be a process like this every time?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
This bylaw is very old, and you see that the way that it's written. typically, when you have an active living document, I think you're right. Every sort of 4 to 5 years, you go through and do housekeeping amendments. Staff, if they're active working with the bylaw and find those little things that you can clean up, you can bring forward housekeeping amendments sponsored by the town at any time, right? And I recommend that to any community. As you work with the bylaw and you find those little things, tweak them right away. Don't let them pile up over decades, because this is what happens when you let them pile up over decades.
So that should be something we should be making sure we're doing going forward.
Yeah, I would recommend so, yes.
So any changes to R1?
A question.
A question from Councillor Downey, then Councillor Cole.
Lot coverage 8.1.2, buildings and structures shall not cover more than 35% of the site area. Is that still realistic today?
Yeah, that's pretty standard. You see, the minimum lot area for your single family is 359. That's about a 7,000 square foot lot. That's a large urban lot. So 35% coverage is fairly significant. Yeah.
Any question, Councillor Cole?
For clarity, can we, as we go through these, actually bring the map up so we can see where the?
Sure, I have the bylaw up. Sorry, I can bring them up too. Oops, is that the one? Nope, that is not the zoning map. Oh, that is the zoning map. Okay. So R1 for Councillor is the yellow area is all your R1 zone properties at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, so any question on the R2?
I want to come back to a point I raised on November 8th, and that's regarding 8.2.1, and that's C, manufactured homes, trailers which are CSA approved. Can we remove that from this section and keep the manufactured homes under R3 zoning only? That one or not?
I'm interested to see the map where those areas are.
Yeah.
Because there already are manufactured homes in those areas.
So your R2 zone, there, so you can see the legend also. I'll make it. Your R2 zone is this sort of taupe color, this area here. Here, I'll circle it so we can see. It's predominantly this area here. You have it in this area here. That's your predominant R2 areas at this time.
So both those areas are already built out pretty much, and we're gonna prevent somebody from getting rid of their old trailer and bringing a new one in, or manufactured home. I don't get why we would want to change that.
Is what you're saying, if it's already got a manufactured home there, you could put a new one there, but you don't want a new one going onto a lot of Cardina or Beach Drive or Woodland or Northlands or.
But based on this, that can't happen right now anyway, unless it's in another zone, manufactured homes in another, it is on R3, yeah. What's R3?
You got an area on Chelan there too, at the tail end of Mine Road in Chelan, that's, cause that's even a private strata for a trailer park. It should be zoned differently.
Now, where's R3?
R3 is the orange. I believe the one that we don't have, no, R3 is the orange, as you can see here. Your R4 is this in here. Then you have your RM1, which is this lighter brown, and your RMH, which is your mobile home manufactured home park, which is the dark brown here.
So if we go back to Councillor Downey's comment, leaving them in here will not affect the other neighborhoods where there are vacant properties.
That is correct, because there are no other properties that are zoned specifically for the R2, that you can't just put a manufactured home anywhere It has to be specifically zoned for it to allow it to occur.
Okay.
So can I ask a specific street question?
Yeah, for sure.
Go to Quatsino, which is right below Mountain View, right below the high school. I want to go to the high school side.
So in here,
Yeah, so you have a little cul-de-sac there.
this one here,
So we currently have trailers there, and we have an empty lot there that's between two trailers.
Mhm.
So if somebody bought that lot, can they or can they not put a trailer on that lot?
no, they would not be permitted to do so. That is zoned for single-family residential and would not permit a manufactured home to be located there.
Even though there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them around that cul-de-sac right now.
That's correct.
So then I have a question. If somebody wants to take the old trailer out, they can't put another trailer, brand new mobile home in there.
That would be correct.
And would they be one of the people who would be notified of this zoning change?
Actually, let me take a step back, sorry. If they were to, with this zoning, it depends on, we need to bring up the existing zoning map.
Yeah, it hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed, so
No,
that
it
means
changed
that
it.
they're currently illegal. The manufactured homes should not be on those parcels under the existing zoning,
Okay, well, they've been there longer than I've been here.
right? So what they'd have to prove out, would they be granted, and this is something I can't answer, would they be granted legal non-conforming from a previous bylaw that we don't have access to? Right? So they'd have to prove that out. If they could prove out that they're legal non-conforming, then yes, they could replace their manufactured home with another manufactured home. That's the nature of legal non-conforming. It is the existing use, same use. Just because they're changing out one use for a new one for an old one, they're permitted to do so. But they would have to, it's the onus is on the owner, they would have to confirm that it's a legal non-conforming situation. Under the bylaw, that I'd be surprised if it is, your existing bylaw has been around for a long time. So they may just have put them there without anybody asking a question, but under the zoning, they are not permitted to be there.
But wait a second, would they not have had to have gotten an occupancy at some point or something? You can't just literally pull a trailer on and skirt it.
Occupancies did not come into effect until 1980.
Yeah.
Your bylaw is older than that.
This is probably part of the Wild West that was before, and yeah,
That's not fair now because
No.
now you know.
yeah, I know, but yeah. I'm sure we're not the only community that has that.
Well, this is a common occurrence. It's a common situation that happens, so you have a choice. You could, if you wanted to protect this use, you could rezone this to R2.
Yeah.
All right, that is an option you have as council as part of this process. If you do not want to protect that use, you can leave it at R1.
Okay. What's your pleasure, council?
I guess I'll leave that alone. There's some triggers in town, but I guess that people have a prerogative as to what they establish with their homes.
Yeah.
Well, the next couple years.
Okay, so our two key questions or changes are 3. Are there any questions or changes on R3? And R4, where you've got 3 notes there.
I'd like to address R4.
Okay, go ahead.
We can see the map.
Sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth just so make sure we're on the same page.
Or is this our multi?
R4 is a sort of a transition, medium density. It allows for singles, duplexes, and townhouse. The multifamily zone is the RM zone, your RM1 zone, which is your multifamily.
RM1. Yeah, sorry, I wanted to discuss RM1 zone.
Okay.
Do we have an R4?
Yep. If you look at the map, these pink areas on your map are currently zoned R4.
Oh, right, okay.
Peach to me, I guess. Or
RM1?
So
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councilor Cole.
Well, I find that interesting. In R4, we're allowing a secondary suite, but we're not in R3.
Yeah.
And R3 are smaller lots is the thought, or they all look kind of the same?
Our three are the smaller lots, and if you look at the purpose for R3, the purpose is predominantly for manufactured home.
Right, okay, yeah.
And that is the reason you don't want a secondary suite in a manufactured home, right?
Got
They're just too small for that. That is the thought behind that.
Thank you.
I have a question around the zonings for row houses. Within, for example, in R4, you're permitted to build townhouses, row houses, but your maximum height is still 8 meters.
Mhm.
Because we're on a hill, it's quite possible you could have a drive-in garage on the bottom, access to a second floor and then a third floor. Is that doable in an 8-meter structure?
It is based on the design of the building for sure. It is possible. You see your townhome heights throughout British Columbia will vary from about 7 meters to 10 meters. So it really it depends. What you'll see is in your R4 zone, the heights are lower, but if in your RM1 zone, your heights for townhouses are actually a little bit higher, right? And that is reflected because your RM1 zone is really your high density zone, right? So you're allowing it to go a little bit higher. That allows for that little bit height, potentially some greater density within that building. Where your RM4 zone is meant to be that sort of medium density, low density zone, and allows for 8 meters. This is the kind of zone you can see being integrated into or adjacent to predominantly single family neighborhoods, where this zone really is your higher density zone, allowing for apartments, things of that nature. So you allow for a slightly higher building with slightly higher density within that zone.
So Courtton has got townhouses going up in a new area just off of, is it Dogwood? Off of Dogwood there, close to the,
The Jubilee Heights, yeah.
what height are those?
If you look at the ones that were just constructed right on the corner of Jubilee and on Dogwood and Alder, the ones that are gray, those are 8 meters, just under. The large ones are that are 3 stories. Those are probably closer to your 10 meter. The reason is those ones actually have a commercial unit in the bottom floor of every one of those, so they're a slightly different animal. That's why they have those stairs up. They're actually a work live unit, so they're slightly taller than the traditional townhouses that are adjacent to them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving to our RM1, you had a question, Councillor Cole?
Yeah, can we bring up the map, please? So I would like to propose RM1 at the parcel we talked about earlier by the Petrocan.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, so you've got that as C1, which doesn't make any sense to me because that's our downtown core.
Yeah,
So,
I believe this is an error. I believe this was supposed to be the CS one. So I think
Yeah.
that was just an error in translation.
So the thought is we need housing. We have no additional RM1 properties being proposed. So I'd like to make the motion. We change that to RM1. Any seconders?
They're sitting as raw land, would the owner not have to give approval?
How does that process work, Kevin?
So the owner would, if council wishes to rezone that to RM1, the owner would be required to be notified prior to public hearing. That's just like all this work in the downtown that we're changing from M1 to C2. It's just a notification requirement, a letter sent directly to them saying, please be advised that we're proposing this amendment to your property.
And on the first map that we did with the OCP, did we list that as residential proposed?
We did have that discussion, yes.
And we determined residential, correct? On that proposed, yeah, okay, never mind. Okay, seconder for that motion?
So the property owner doesn't have to go through rezoning if we do this.
That is correct.
But if the property owner wanted it to be commercial,
Derek's inserting the conversation.
So it's already commercial. If we leave it as it is, the property manager would bring forward, or owner would bring forward a rezoning application.
Which would then be consistent with our OCP. Okay. So the ability is there for them if they want to come forward to rezone.
That is correct.
As the property stands now.
So all those in favor of the changing it to RM1? Opposed?
So where does that leave that? It's mislabeled already, so what are you gonna relabel that?
It'll
To?
have to, it'll be,
Go with the
Yeah,
others.
I was just hoping we would take some leadership on some housing, but I'll bring up next one.
If I can just make a comment, it's not nothing to do with leadership. We have shown leadership through the OCP. And so if that property owner comes to us and says they would like to rezone it, we can approve it because it's in line with the OCP.
We just changed the OCP to say residential for future
Yeah.
and not in that property, but then we're not gonna change it now. I don't get it.
Because we want to hear from the property owner. Okay.
Well, you won't hear from the property owner because he's not gonna get a letter because we're leaving it the way it is, so.
Okay.
In my scenario, we would have heard from the property owner.
Okay, great.
So if we could continue along the same lines, I'm looking at McNeil Road, where the daycare is.
is that RM1 also, Councillor Cole?
Well, I'm suggesting it, not the daycare, but the parcel next to it be changed to RM1, that big, and again, we've got that as commercial, which to me doesn't make sense. And we can discuss that when we get to the commercial, but that property right there where your cursor is on, I make a motion that that be changed to RM1.
Seconder for that?
Oh, not RM1, sorry, what is it? You know, I'm losing it. Yeah, RM1, yeah.
So second,
That property's been, oh, sorry.
I'll second that for discussion because I'd like to ask a question, and that is, we didn't talk about that in future use, or was that in future use? And do those two have to align? Yeah.
Here, let me bring up that other map. Too many screens.
It's 2H. We need to move.
Yeah, my vision is like now that we've added daycares into our zones, the daycare would be C2 because it would match all around as being changed to C2. I'm not sure why we would single out that as C1 when all of our other documents say C1 is downtown waterfront, tourist, commercial. And then that parcel next to it, I have no idea who owns it or whatever, but seems to me that it backs residential properties and we need multi-residential properties. And I think it's far more likely to be developed for that than a commercial application.
It's zoned right now as residential in our proposed land use map, so why, I'm missing something.
Sorry, I'm just hunting down the actual maps. I got 8 different windows open here.
So I'm looking at the proposed land use map, area 1, and we have that as residential. So what you're asking, Councillor Cole, is that we drill it down into which particular type of residential it would be.
Yeah, and I'm considering that given the size of that property, it makes sense for multiple. You wouldn't just have one house on there.
That's quite a steep little property, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. A lot of, for me, if I want to build anything down there. I gotta see.
Mhm.
Mayor Wickstrom, do we have an end time for this meeting?
I was just thinking, I mean, we've done really, really well. I think we should end up that page there after we've just answered your question. And we got a motion on the floor, so, and then, just want to go in camera briefly.
Sure.
And then, yeah, then we're done.
There we are. So yeah, that property is like Councillor Cole's already, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen again. So yes, rezoning that to RM1 would be consistent with what is shown on our map currently.
My preference is to leave it as is and let the owner bring forward a proponent for any change of use. Our process here isn't onerous.
Yeah, might I remind you, we're arbitrarily changing a bunch of existing properties and we're all seem to be fine with that. We're changing Island Foods so that he can never expand or do anything there. We're fine with that, but there's a vacant property. We're hesitant. It could change the other way. We give the leadership. We want more housing. So we've rezoned this property for housing. Well, if somebody comes back and says, no, I want to do a commercial, disco there, then we could just change it back. Like, it goes both ways, but we need to provide some leadership for some more housing because our current OCP and our current looking at all this zoning bylaw, we're not adding one stick of multiple housing. The town's built out. Every brown section is built out.
I guess my hesitancy is just arbitrarily picking like not knowing the slope and what exactly that would mean. And, so then do we rezone it into something that means a considerable cost because of bank reinforcement and this and that? And is it even then doable? Then we still have a blank property.
Well, no matter what goes on the land, all those would apply to either commercial or residential. Like right now, it's zoned for commercial, C1 use. So we're gonna leave it at C1. C1 is the whole downtown, downtown core.
We're moving it to residential.
Is that the moving it to residential, is that suggested in the OCP, or is that what we're actually is in the zoning map as well, Kevin?
Through your worship, the zoning map itself has it maintained it as the C1. The OCP map has it as residential. The proposal to rezone it as an RM1 is a reasonable consideration. It is in close proximity to the town. It also provides a very significant amount of flexibility. It doesn't have to go as a apartment building at all. The RM1 also allows for single family, two family dwelling townhouses, and low rise. So it's quite a diverse zone. It also allows for densification of that area within proximity of downtown. So it is a reasonable consideration for council.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. It's carried. Okay, so we'll stop there. Great work. We did really well. We just have a little bit more to get through. See what our next committee of the whole meeting is like. If it's not too heavy in the agenda, we'll push it a little bit then. And then just before we go in camera, I want to know if council is in the same mindset as myself, that these two really need to come together, because even us as a council kind of went back and forth for a public hearing. So would that be okay to hold the OCP till we get through the zoning and do second reading of the zoning and do both together at public hearing?
I personally would like to decide that once we're through the zoning bylaw more.
Okay, well, so then we're at this point, we're not instructing staff to arrange a public hearing for the OCP, correct? Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion, please, to go on camera under section, read the whole thing. And now, because I've moved papers around. Well, sure, yeah, oh, sorry, Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Kevin.
Have a great one.
Thank you, Kevin. Do you have it written down there?
Don't have a, I can leave that for you really
Well, it's
quickly.
right here somewhere amongst all my folded pages. Section 191A 90, brackets 1A, and that has to do with identifiable information to do with an employee, something along those lines. Apologies, because it's here somewhere, but I can't find it. So motion for that? Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. It's not being recorded any longer.
Let me just switch that off.
Motion to adjourn and go in camera? Yeah. I've seconded, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay.
Okay, you are not recording.
No.
Oh, here we go, hold on.
Stop.